Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations That Matter with me, Angela Gale James from angelagalejames.com and Mchelle Vincent from Astroworks. We come together today to share in the incredible energies that are around us at the moment, where we are going into a new moon solar eclipse tomorrow. And Mchelle is coming to share of her wisdom and her understanding of how the energies are going to be affecting us and what we can do to make sure that we harness them instead of be what's the word I'm looking for, not fearful of, but trying to avoid the energies rather than stepping into them. So welcome, Mchelle. It's great to have you with us again. And we're talking about the new solar eclipse in Aries, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
We are certainly doing that. So thank you for inviting me, and hello to all the listeners.
Cool. New beginnings seems to be the theme, and it's been a strong theme that it's been almost building up to in terms of where we find ourselves now with the planetary energies. I know that a lot of astrologers have been talking about, and even the conversations that we've had have been focusing on the fact that the new beginnings energy is so prevalent this year. So share your take and your understanding of these energies. I know we start off with being in the first sign of the zodiac, which in itself is new beginnings, which is Aries. And so would you like to build on that theme for us, Mchelle?
Okay, so thank you for that. So let's first look at the fact that it is a new moon. So the solar eclipse is happening, and it happens at a new moon, and the lunar eclipse happens at a full moon. So this is, for this year, it is our first, well, the new moon is in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Aries is also the independent. Aries is the epitome of independence in terms of the zodiac signs. It's about me, myself, and I. So the new beginning is coming back into this whole idea with the sun and moon being together at 19 degrees, 24 minutes of Aries. It's pretty much that whole idea of a new beginning. It's a new way of looking at things. So what we've got to begin to understand right now is that the whole of mankind, the whole universal system, there's an evolutionary flow happening. Everything is, well, we always know that everything is evolving. We just so happen to be a bit on the fast track at the moment. So when you're looking at new beginnings, and the lunar eclipse was all about endings. So maybe in the last 2 weeks you might have found yourself letting go of things. That letting go of things could have been letting go of the people pleasing. It could have been letting go of resources. It could have been letting go of clutter, of things that you thought were important, and then realized, you know what, it doesn't have any value in my life anymore. So that clearing out and the endings is a good thing, which always then provides the space for a new beginning. So how do you do a new beginning when you're living in the same house and you're working in the same job and you've got the same children and the same friends? And you know what I'm saying? It's like very difficult to say, okay, well, like, where do you want this new beginning to happen? So I think one of the things that we need to do is that we need to, because it's the new moon in Aries, and because we're having the solar eclipse right now, I think this is fast forwarding us to actually say, what is the life you want to live? What does that life look like? And it's an interesting question, because when it was asked, when Greg Braden asked that question to his audience, all of them came back with a smattering of what already exists. In other words, it's so hard for us to actually change our paradigm. It's so difficult for us to change, well, this is the world we know, this is the reality we know. This is the money system we know. This is how you define success in the system, etc., etc., etc. So all of them came back to a smattering of what the old paradigm looks like. And the
So
invitation is to look
sorry,
for the new paradigm.
Okay, so sorry, yeah, there's a little bit of a lag. So my understanding of this is that when we're talking about new beginnings, even though our external circumstances may not have changed significantly at all, the new beginnings are actually with ourselves, with who we see ourselves as and how we go out into the world. So for me, what comes up with this kind of new beginning is a lot of internal work, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of working with the kind of feedback that we're getting from the external world around us, the lessons that we are in the process of learning and processing. And so the new beginning challenge for me, and the challenge that I would like to put out to everybody, is how can you start showing up in a newer version of who you are, seeing as we're also dealing with Aries, which is the first house. And there was something else that struck me as you were talking. I'm just trying to get that thought back. It had to do with Aries. Are we talking here about ego? Are we talking about how we see ourselves in our higher nature? Would you like to shed a little bit more light on that?
Well, Aries is ego. Okay. So, when we're going, it's the first house of the zodiac, it's the first sign of the zodiac, and it's all about me, myself, and I. That defines ego. Okay. But the thing is, we are working in a different consciousness. We are evolving into a different consciousness right now. And in that different consciousness, we are again coming back to that theme of self-sovereignty. You and I were discussing this morning. You need to shine the light on inside yourself.
Yeah.
So you need to be self-sovereign, okay? But self-sovereign is a very different definition to ego.
Yeah.
So it's still about, so this is where the word interdependent comes in. You're independent, but at the same time, that bucket of water that you take out of the ocean is still part of the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what's also interesting as we tie this together as well is that not only are sun and moon at 19 degrees and 24 minutes, but we've also got Chiron, the wounded healer, there. And when we start talking about self-sovereignty, as you and I were speaking about this morning, part of this is, and certainly for me, has been my experience over the last couple of weeks. And certainly now, because we know that also these energies move in. And just because the eclipse of the new moon is tomorrow doesn't mean to say we haven't started feeling the energies already. But the thing that really struck me around this was, where am I when I start doing some of that self-examination? Where am I, or where have I leached out my power to others? Where have I, what did we use the word this morning, was been indiscriminate in terms of how I've shared myself and my energies out into the world? And where those spaces are, that's the clearing, and then embracing, bringing, and it's almost like pulling in. When you were talking about it this morning, when you see the guys on the docks and they pull the ropes of the boat in, it was almost like I'm pulling those ropes back in terms of wherever I've let them go, and I've allowed whatever it is, people, places, circumstances, things, principles, to be not just compromised, but certainly to be given away without any sense of boundary, without any sense of being circumspect. And it's kind of like open sesame, here's all my power, have it, but now I need to reclaim it again. And that for me has been quite a big journey, big part of journeying back into self-sovereignty. Your comments on that, particularly linking it back to Chiron as well.
So what I'm going to say there, Angela, is I'm going to say that when we've spoken about taking one's power back, in my world, this has been something that's been spoken about for the last 20, 25 years. From the early 2000s, we have been talking about taking your power back and the fact that we've given it to people. So what I want to say here is that in an evolutionary process, we started taking our power back slowly and surely over the years, okay? But remember that whenever you give your power away, you're actually causing a wound. You're actually because you're separating from yourself. And if we are all God, and you are separating from yourself, you're then further separating from God at the same time. And that's because you're giving yourself away to other people indiscriminately in this whole quest to be accepted, to belong, to feel part of a group,
To fit
to
in.
be included, to fit in. So this is, and then we're not. Then we're
Yeah.
not. Then people leave us. Then they betray us. They in all sorts of different ways. Whether it's because a father was an alcoholic or a mother had dementia or whatever, people are letting us down, but we carry on giving ourselves to them. So I would say that we have been giving our power and we've been working on regaining our power back for a while now, certainly since 2012. We have been working with bringing the energy back. And with this particular solar eclipse, and with Chiron being at exactly the same degree and minute, okay, I mean, it's actually quite incredible from an astrological point of view to have it in this instance, because Chiron has a 50 a 1 year cycle, okay, and for all of these to align at the same degree and minute is actually quite spectacular. And so I would say that it's almost like I would like to invite the listeners to say, I'm at the end of my wound. Okay, I'm at the end of my wound. It's almost like I've brought myself back to myself. I've brought myself back for me to light the fire and the light within myself. I don't have to give it away to people anymore in order to feel part of the group.
Yeah.
And that gives you a new platform for a new beginning.
And this is quite significant in terms of what you're saying, because a lot of people, myself included, over the years, thought we were being of service, but we weren't. We were actually giving ourselves away. You talked earlier on about things like codependence and kind of really, putting ourselves out there without any level of discernment, or in some cases inappropriately, under the guise of what we thought service is and service was. And that hasn't actually been the case, because service and the energies that we're talking about in terms of I heard something so beautiful 2 days ago. Actually, I was on an online workshop, and it was about books and book writing. And the person who was giving the address was talking about the fact that we couldn't, or for authors, you can't write from the wound, you can write from the scars. And so for me, a lot of this is also around, we can't live from the wound. Some of the reading that we've done around Chiron brought in the energies of the victim, the persecutor, the rescuer. We can't live in that space. The more empowering space is to shift into and to develop that kind of scar tissue, which a lot of people have been doing with the kind of self-awareness that they've been going through and building. And from that scar tissue, shift into being the creator, the challenger, and that supporting ourselves and also supporting others. And that's all that moved for me back into, or evolving into, that sense of self-sovereignty. Because it's also a
Yes.
term that we bandy out around. We bandy the terms self-sovereignty and agency and all of those things that are around. And do we really, really understand what that means? And so the journey for me has been a lot around, and I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to hand it over to you again, has been a lot around focusing on where is the particular wounding element that I'm dealing with right now, and what is it that I need to be doing to heal that. And so that brings me to a point for you to expand on where we've all got the sun, the moon, and Chiron in our charts somewhere. They may not, and it's not necessarily the same, all in the same space.
No.
But you can expand on this now. Depending on where the sun, moon, and Chiron actually sit in our own individual charts, is where the spotlight almost is being placed on where it is that we can heal and move into a sense of self-sovereignty. So would you like to expand on that?
Okay, so there's just a couple of things of what you just said there, Angela. I do believe that we have been of service to other people, even in the past, through our misunderstanding, because that's how evolution works. Evolution works in the way that you do your best in terms of your understanding at that point in time. So I think that the thing is, when we were in service to others in the past, in the lower level of consciousness, okay, we were into expectation, as opposed to unconditional love or kindness or compassion. So because the ego, the selfishness, was still all about, I have to do this to fit in, even if it was done on an unconscious level. Okay, this is what I need to do in order for people to like me, belong me, include me, etc., etc., etc. So there was the selfish element, okay, which then created an expectation. When you are standing in your own sovereignty, in terms of this is who I am, and this is my light, I actually depend on myself for my happiness, for everything for all my needs, okay? But I'm interdependent because I live in the greater whole. Then you're taking away the selfishness and you're taking away the expectation, because then you don't have to expect anything from somebody because they're no longer responsible for your happiness or for making you feel like you belong or whatever the case may be. So that's what I'd like to say about that. And then coming back to your question, that yes, I think more importantly right now, because our audience, your sun can be in 12 different signs. Your moon can be in 12, one of 12 different signs. Chiron can be in one of 12 different signs. So we've already got those what do you call them, matchings are huge. But I think what's the commonality over here is that everybody has Aries in their chart. In other words, even if you are a Virgo, you have got an Aries house, an area of your life that is governed by, that's overseen by Aries. And that's the area of your life where you are going to be doing some work now. So that could be in relationships, it could be in money, it could be in learning, it could be in the family dynamic, it could be in creativity, it could be in terms of working with foreign people or going into faraway reaches. It could be in all sorts of different areas. And I think that is, so we've all got that Aries house. We've all got that area of our life that is governed by Aries. And this means that area is going to come into focus right now. So my advice to everybody right now would be this. You've got an inkling of where it's happening in your life. Are you with me? You've got an inkling. Is it happening in the working environment, relationships, children, whatever? And then that's the one that where you can maybe ask yourself the question, in this area of my life, my relationships, my money, my children, whatever, where's my wound? And how can I begin to heal it? Or what would the wound be within this area of my life? Obviously, if you had your chart done, you would know more specifically about what exactly the areas that you're looking in. But there is something in your life right now that's highlighted. Okay, there is no doubt in my mind about that. With this strong energy and with so many planets being in Aries at the moment. So
one of the ways to pick up on that is, where are you feeling stress in your life? Where is that kind of heightened sense of a little bit of anxiety that you can feel in your chest? What are the things that are happening in and around you that are signaling that that's the area that needs healing. Because essentially, at the end of the day, everybody in our lives, we'd like to be in the space of wanting to hold other people responsible for things that happen, and that's not the case at all. But
Yes.
people being mirrors, people, places, things being mirrors into us will highlight for us where that area of or that wounding is presenting itself, because Chiron is so strong in the charts at the moment. It's not always like this, because Chiron's not always so closely linked, but we all do have a
No.
Chiron wound we're needing to heal within ourselves anyway.
And you see, the thing is, an eclipse, as Pam Gregory says it, it's almost like a it's almost like a nuclear explosion as opposed to a bomb. Okay, it's like there's suddenly something that you just have to see to. There's suddenly something that's just grabbing your attention. So right now, let it grab your attention and pay attention to it, and pay attention to what's happening with you on an internal basis, because like everything else in astrology, this is a trigger point, but the effects of it are longer lasting. So it doesn't last for a day. We're not having a solar eclipse tomorrow at 8:21 in the evening, and like, okay, well, we've done the solar eclipse now, it's over. That's not how it works, okay? Usually an eclipse has an effect for a 6-month period. Because this is such a strong one, and one of the reasons why it's a strong one is because right now the moon in its orbit around the Earth is very close to the Earth. So that's called a supermoon. So now this eclipse is happening with a supermoon. Supermoon means that the feminine is being emphasized, sensitivity is being emphasized, intuition, spirituality, nurturing. All of this is being emphasized, and I think that's important to look at.
And when we add Chiron into the mix, does that also then mean that a lot of the wounds are in the feminine because she is so close to Earth? And she is.
No, I actually think that the wound could be a lot more because of the solar eclipse. Okay, in the solar eclipse, the feminine energy actually covers the masculine energy. So it's the moon that actually covers the masculine. So I would say that the wound is going to be lack of courage, lack of taking initiative, lack of being assertive. So we're still looking at the masculine qualities, but for the women that are listening to this, it's about giving your power away because you didn't know how to stand up for yourself. You didn't have the courage. You didn't have the tools. So and the fact of the matter is that we're still with Libra, Aries and Libra. And whichever way we look at it, Libra is still about balance. So looking at it, we again, from month to month to month, we're being asked to look at balancing these masculine and feminine energies within ourselves. Because as we are bringing and integrating the masculine and feminine energies, bringing in that courage, bringing in that strength, bringing in the assertion, bringing in the initiative, and the inspiration, right? We're healing our wounds.
And so just to kind of backtrack a second, and we can come and pick this up again, just for those who don't understand, how does Aries and Libra or Libra, how do they connect? Because if people don't have a lot of background in astrology, they may not be quite sure around how these two star signs connect.
Well, basically, in the astrological world, there are 12 signs of the zodiac, and each of the signs has an opposite. So the opposite to Aries is Libra. The opposite to Taurus is Scorpio. The opposite to Gemini is Sagittarius, which means that, so this is what it is. Aries is indicative of the individual, me, myself, I. It's all about independence. Libra, on the other hand, is all about other people. It's about all your other relationships other than yourself. All your other relationships. It's people. Whereas Aries is the individual, Libra is the people. Aries is singular, Libra is the opposite of singular. Thank you. the collective. So Libra is very much about other people, other relationships, etc.
So there's already an implied duality because they're opposite each other, and part of the work that we're doing is to bring the two together. So understanding
there is a duality. It's not implied. It's duality. Yeah.
So the challenge there is to bring our own individuality into that sense of being part of a collective. So we don't lose the sense of who we are, but we offer who we are in service to the collective. That's for me.
And you know,
it works out.
It is like that. And you know what is so difficult here, and in terms of the old dynamic and the old paradigm that we're coming from here, is because we, especially women, for the last 2,000 years, we have been taught to be there for everybody else, but not for ourselves. Okay. And in a way, we are trying to find out the real meaning of independent versus interdependent. Okay. Because the fact of the matter is we're human beings, and human beings relate to each other. We were never meant to be in isolation.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that in itself brings in this oxymoron, because you're not meant to be in isolation. You're meant to share yourself with everybody. But if you share yourself with everybody, you give away your power. So there's this constant dichotomy that's going on. And it's just the case of, no, you hold your power. And this means that you say to somebody, no, I'm not going to do that. Your job is to be responsible for X, Y, Z, and I'm not doing your job for you anymore.
So quite interestingly, and I just want to kind of digress slightly in the sense that when we're talking about the solar eclipse, and yes, there's all the personal development aspects to it, but also on a collective consciousness level. I mean, everybody's talking about it, and we spoke about this again this morning. Everybody's talking about the solar eclipse being the grand American solar eclipse, and one or two of the questions coming out was, so for example, we're in South Africa. What does that then mean for South Africa? So just talk a little bit about the grand American solar eclipse, and then how we relate it to the area that we're in terms of what goes on around us, no matter where we are.
Okay, so look, so basically when one is doing astrology on a, for a country or something like that, it's called mundane astrology. And which is not really my strong point, but I'll do my best to answer what you're saying. So right now, we're going to have a solar eclipse tomorrow, where the moon is going to cross over the sun, and it's going to bring a shadow. We are not going to see it in South Africa. Okay, we're on the wrong side of the earth. So because the earth spins on its own axis, and it's at an angle of 23.5 degrees, we are not going to see it. So there's certain places that will be able to see the total solar eclipse. And a lot of that is happening in America. Now, they've gone back to solar eclipses from 2017 and another one in 2020, where it crossed over various parts of America. And the converging point of all three of these solar eclipses is in Texas, in America. Now, when you can see it, when the solar eclipse is visible from Earth, that terrain becomes important, because it's almost like the sun or the energy system's going directly down onto that piece of ground, that land. So the thing is, we're again looking at That's why America's coming into prominence now, because a lot of America is going to be able to see the solar eclipse. But together with that, we've just had this Pluto return for America, which is in their second house, their resources. We already know that there's talk about the changing of the money system, not being dollar backed anymore, being gold backed. And they're talking about different ways of doing banking and how do we put value into money and so on and so forth. That's all second house stuff, which is very related to America. So America is going to be very interesting to see how it's going to play out in the next 6 months. Very interesting to see, because there's a whole lot of other planetary things that are going to come about, which are all going to be happening also round about November this year, when America goes up for elections. So it's like, okay, let's stand and observe and see. For ourselves in South Africa, whichever way we look at it, we're still looking at the solar eclipse, and we're still looking at everything within our country being affected. And I'm not 100% sure of South Africa's chart. I tried to look it up just now, but I didn't like what I saw. So I'm not quite sure whether I used the right time. I'm not sure whether people are using 7 a.m. or 9 a.m. But I had a look at it, and again, all I can really and truly say for South Africa is that our leaders have to start being very, very careful about being egocentric, because that masculine could actually get very ego bound, and through that ego bind, Angela, that's when the word indiscriminate can come up, where you then form indiscriminate alliances in the belief that you're keeping yourself independent because you don't want to give away the power.
It's going to be quite interesting to see what actually transpires. And that's not just within governmental structures, that's also within leadership structures, within organizations as well.
Yes.
Because you're focusing on the energy of leadership itself. And that for me also starts to bring about, Tanya Gabriel was talking about it on her YouTube video on the solar eclipse, around how this is going to start ushering in a very new and different energy linking to leadership, where it is about unity, it is about the collective, it is about people taking their freedom back. It is about all of those things, which are essentially also, as far as I understand, also come back to that Aries energy of the new beginnings. Of you've got Pluto coming into Aquarius, all these new beginnings that are happening, where we're shifting, that balance of power is shifting, and the existing kind of egocentric, out of balance masculine is going to be holding on for freaking dear life. And so we're going to start a lot of power struggles in terms of people not wanting to relinquish the status quo of where they've been, because who wants to give up power when I'm holding power, or when I'm holding money? They don't give it up either. So it's going to be quite interesting. So we are set for probably 6 months of quite interesting change and transformation. And the energy for me that I've been picking up with Aries is that energy of the pioneer. And so how can I be pioneering in those in the kind of the kind of energy that we're dealing with at the moment? How can I be pioneering, push through my own glass ceilings, break through into new ways of being and doing, utilizing my gifts and talents for the greater whole? Is that a way that we would suggest that people work with these energies?
Absolutely. Do something different, even if it's one thing. Even if it's one thing per month. Let's say change a habit, change a daily routine. Look at something and really start working on it from a belief point of view, from a point of view. Maybe start with your wound. What is my wound? Where where do I sabotage myself? Because I think that by answering the question of where are you your own self-saboteur is where you're going to find the wound.
So for
And
sorry, for a lot of people, I want to just kind of frame it into the same thing but different wording. Where do you play the imposter? Where are you the imposter? Because that's your source of self-sabotage. That's where you sabotage yourself mostly, is when I stand up, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, going into that space of devaluing ourselves and showing up as who says I can do this, and stepping into that energy of being the imposter. That's the source of the biggest clue for me around where am I self-sabotaging is where do I show up as an imposter. I had an experience of it yesterday. I was re-looking at this book that I'm putting together called Let My Light Shine, and I was reading through the first 3-4 chapters, and I was going, who am I to be? Most of the stuff is irrelevant. Who am I to be putting it on these pages? Well, it's not for me to judge. It's for the reader to judge. I'm just putting out what I'm being given. But I could already sense that question, who are you to come up with this kind of thinking? Who are you to put that on a page? Who are you to put that out into the world? Very big source of self-sabotage is that imposter.
Yes. And it's in my experience, it always comes back to I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, I'm not worthy, other people are better than me. It comes back, if you think about it, it comes back to a couple of key phrases. I'm not good enough. I'm not deserving. I'm not worthy. How many of those phrases can you think of? There's about half a dozen of them.
I'm happy to share mine. First off was, I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. And I don't matter. And therefore, I'm not lovable.
There you
and
go.
Those were has been my wound, and therefore, in terms of the work that I do, my work is not good enough, my work doesn't matter, and my work is not enough, and therefore my work is not going to be loved and accepted by others. Now, if that's the vibration and energy that I'm putting out, who the heck is actually going to like what I'm putting out if that's the energy attached to it?
And that was happening all on a very deep unconscious level. And one of the things about eclipses and new beginnings is exactly that. It catapults you out of the old way of thinking. So right now, to the listeners, if you are uncomfortable and if any type of thinking is making you uncomfortable and unhappy and depressed at the moment, please pay attention to it. Because it's actually your gift.
Absolutely.
Because
more and more as I go along on my own journey, I'm learning so much about those things that I fear, those things that I'm afraid of, those things that bring up the anxiety within me are the very things that are going to birth the gifts. And the only way that I'm going to get to the gifts is by being brave. And you spoke about being brave and courageous earlier on, is about being brave and courageous enough to step into and through that anxiety, that fear, to be able to actually unearth and unveil what that real gift is. So it's very interesting times, and it really is around doing that deep inner work that takes an enormous amount of courage. Simple, but absolutely not easy.
It is simple, but it's absolutely not easy. But it's just the case of you've got two options right now, but I don't actually think you've got two options because the universe is not giving us options right now. You have to look at the stuff. You have to look at that which is blocking you. And the only way you're going to find it is where is your distress right now? Because that's your clue. That's what you need to start looking at. And it will be somewhere inside you where you need to start saying, okay, so what is happening here? Why am I feeling like this? I thought I'd worked through this. Why has it come up again? And then start looking at a different way of how can you do it differently. In other words, we spoke about this again this morning, Angela, is that you don't discard the shadow. You heal the shadow. You heal, you integrate, you integrate the shadow, and that's when you start becoming whole. And just on another point completely, which is a little bit different, is that a lot of what we've been speaking about for the last 2 decades has been about transformation. It's been about transformation, transmutation, um, and we're going into transcendence. I would actually, it occurred to me a little bit earlier today that I would like to, for myself, so let me rather talk for me right now, and especially with the solar eclipse, Aries, and all the rest of it, and all the other things that are happening, because there's a whole lot happening, actually, not just the solar eclipse. But I would like to use transformation. I would like to replace that with on an evolutionary cycle. It's
spiral, that spiral that we talk about,
yeah,
that continuous spiral.
But it's yeah, for me, it's like evolutionary transcendence that we are all involved with at the moment. Either we invite it in and we go with the change, or we carry on resisting it at a cost, at a huge cost. And I don't think that it's many of us can't resist it, because that's the energy right now. We've got to be working with this.
And so we're in for really interesting times as we go ahead. And again, the whole point of these discussions and dialogues is to be able to understand the energies and to be able to then align our responses to it, so that we become co-creators with the universe, as opposed to kind of being on the back foot and passive recipients of what's going on around us. And that we all are in a space where we have the opportunity and the capacity to co-create with the divine and with one another. And so this also reminds me so much of Joseph Campbell's work of the man from a man with 1,000 faces and the hero's journey. And if you take, he's got 12 steps in the hero's journey, and the first step would start with Aries, which is the call. And that's what's being issued, is the call for us to step into the truth of who we really are and offer that truth in service to ourselves and then into the world that we're a part of. Mchelle, thank you again so much. I know that there was something that really important that flashed in my brain, but then it disappeared again. So it obviously wasn't that important anymore. But thank you so much again. I know it's Sunday, but we wanted to get this done and up and out before we hit the solar eclipse energies tomorrow. And so my wish to everybody who does watch and listen is that you find within yourself that part of you that needs your energy and attention and focus in terms of your own healing for now. Because different facets will present themselves at different places and different times. But specifically now, what is that part within you that you can afford yourself the opportunity to open into and to heal? Because that's going to carry you through the next cycle of the next 12 months. And that's where the pioneering energy comes in. How can you be your own pioneer in order to pull you through the next 12 months? As part of this journey. So for anybody who's interested in having their chart done, Mchelle can be found at Mchelle, it's astroworks.com with 2 X's. ASTROWORXX.com with 2 X's. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about astrology and about having their charts done, you can actually make contact with Mchelle there. We'll put that into the notes at the bottom of the video. And secondly, I have put out a challenge, a 13-day journaling challenge, linking to the 12 archetypical energies linked to each of the zodiac signs. So this is not about Aries, the sign. This is about Aries, the energy, being the pioneer. It's about Taurus being the steward. It's about Cancer being the nurturer, Leo being the empowerer. So there's all 12 archetypes have been put into a journaling challenge. You can find that at angelagaljames.com/zodiac-challenge. And again, I'll put that in the show notes underneath this video. Mchelle, thank you so much. Any last words to everybody?
Yes, I would say to everybody, be calm, find your peace, and make sure that on a daily basis you actually find your balance, your peace, and just be still, because that will get you through.
Okay. And that applies not only on an individual level, but also applies to people who are occupying leadership positions as well. So for you, in terms of leading your teams, it's about creating that environment in which people can feel that they are peaceful and that they are supported through these very interesting energies and times. Thanks very much again, Mchelle.
Thank you.
I love these dialogues, love these discussions. I learn something new every single, in fact, I learn lots new every single time we run one of these.
Okay, well, you have a lovely afternoon, and God bless to everybody. Bye.
Love, light, and abundant blessings. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.